Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am Loring Harkness, Head of Commercial at BrainBot, one of the core contributors to Shutter. We have a wonderful discussion here today about StealthBid, which is a new technology built on Shutter designed to help keep DAOs from throwing money away. For those of you who are already part of a DAO or maybe a DAO manager, you may already be familiar with Shutter shielded voting on Snapshot. It is the most widely used voting protection feature on Snapshot today, and it's used by over 650 DAOs, including Arbitrum and Bankless, in order to protect their voting integrity and prevent vote manipulation. So as I mentioned, we're going to be addressing a significant challenge faced by DAOs, specifically wasteful spending when it comes to selecting vendors to do work on their behalf. We'll be introducing an innovative tool designed to tackle this issue head on. And just to kind of show you what's at stake, the total value held in DAO treasuries has recently skyrocketed, and estimates for treasury values range anywhere between $26 and $37 billion. Now, community members or members of those DAOs rightfully expect these funds to be managed prudently and to be used for a broad range of purposes, including governance, marketing, development, and other essentials. But the question is, how much of this DAO spending is actually efficient? How much is going to waste by the DAO overspending for these services? And what systems for accountability and transparency are available to ensure that these funds are used widely? It's kind of ironic, actually, because the transparency that DAOs are built on often works against them. You see, the budgets and the bids oftentimes are all public, exposing task allocations to manipulation and allowing vendors to inflate prices. So what's the result? Well, DAOs overpay, they drain their treasuries, and they get very little bang for their buck compared to maybe more efficiently run, less transparent organizations or corporations. So is this way of DAOs operating efficient? Well, hardly. Let's take a look at a scenario about how this actually plays out. So in this case, we're going to see that resources are squandered, contributors game the system, and the community's trust in fair decision-making is eroded away. So let's dig in to see how we can help change that with this new innovative tool called StealthBid. And before we go any further, we actually have a wonderful lineup of speakers today, and I'll hand it over to them to introduce themselves, starting off with Alex. Go ahead.
Thank you, Loring, for this intro and for setting up the problem here. So I'm Alex. I'm working at Kleros as a DAO lead. So I'm dealing with everything related to governance and partnership with DAOs. I'm also an Arbitrum delegate, as at Kleros we are building our V2 on Arbitrum chain. I'm also involved in Shutter DAO, and I'm also more on the personal level involved in a VC DAO called Blocker DAO. So yeah, I had the opportunity to witness such wasteful or lack of proper budget allocation in some DAOs and also in the corporate world. So it really resonates. This topic really resonates with my experience and what I've seen.
Wonderful. We're going to dive in to all of that in just a second. And thank you for joining us. Ivo, why don't you go next, please?
Hello. So yeah, I'm one of the two developers from StealthBid. My other colleague couldn't come, but I think I will be enough for this topic. Yeah, we did this project on the last hackathon, but the Shooter guys really loved the idea, so they decided that it's going to be good to present this project to the community. Um, yeah, I can do a demo of the project if you want, or should this be now, or am I going to do this later?
We'll get to that in just a second. I'm super excited for the demo. But first, let's hand it over to Louis to introduce himself.
Hey guys, Luis here from Brainbot, product manager at Share Network, and I'm also one of the two developers. So we developed the Nano Shutter together with our other developer, one of our other developers, Punit, which is the sort of hackathon version of Shutter that StealthBid runs on. So very excited about this conversation.
Wonderful. Actually, that's a great segue into a little bit of the background story about how StealthBid came to be. Recently, I came to EthSofia to do a presentation about Shutter, commit and reveal encryption, and also to support teams building on Shutter in the hackathon. And I have to give a shout out here to EthSofia and the entire Bulgarian builder community. I was blown away by the passion and the level of talent and the exciting hackathon projects which came out of that weekend, one of which obviously is StealthBid. So if you do have the opportunity to go to EthSofia in the future, highly recommend it. But on that note, let's jump into the conversation. And starting off with you, Alex. As you mentioned, you've worked closely with a number of DAOs. You have experience with their governance processes and their procurement processes. To what extent is there actually wasteful spending within DAOs? I guess the big question is it a problem at all?
Yeah, I think the issue with wasteful spendings exists amongst DAO, but it's also not an issue only for DAOs. If we take the big picture, budget allocation is a big issue, even in traditional corporations. Before working in crypto, I used to work as a finance business partner in a big corporation. So I was dealing with things like budget allocation. And budget allocation is always an issue because you have mechanism where people basically ask always more than what they need. And basically, when the end of the year comes, they try to spend as much as possible to be sure that the next year they are going to have the same amount of budget. So we are seeing a lot of wasteful spending within big companies. With DAOs, things are even more problematic. Why? Because you don't have really one central entity. You have the DAO, but the DAO is multiple. You have all the token holders behind the scene, and you have this some would say governance or decentralization theater when you have all of this going behind the scene. So what happens most of the time is the DAO put a budget, and then you have the service provider. And the service provider, of course, is going to match as much the budget that is transparent and known and open to everybody. And in this way, we can see some service provider are extracting value from the DAO, and it's a net loss for the DAO. I think recently we saw more and more of innovative way to try to tackle this issue. I'm thinking about things like retro PGF that was done by Optimism. More recently, we have heard of things like Futarchy, for instance, a project like Seer that is using a Kleros Oracle could be used for this kind of thing, where you could have a prediction market on the future metrics of the grant given to a project. But I really think things like commit and reveal could be part of the mix for the DAO in order to have the proper allocation. Because at the end of the day, what a DAO needs is to spend the good amount of resources at the right place. Basically, you don't want to overspend or to fund the wrong projects. So I'm really happy and interested to learn more about StealthBid.
So I think that was a great starting point. And when we think about the technology that most DAOs use to make decisions, it's normally a community forum, either on Discord or Discourse, and then a voting platform, usually something like Snapshot or maybe Decent for off-chain or on-chain voting. But all of those platforms are super transparent. And so I think what you get in a competitive RFP or request for proposals situation is something kind of like an open bid auction. But in this case, unlike selling fine art, the suppliers often don't bid each other up. They might bid each other down. And so I think a much more effective way to do this might be something akin to a closed bid auction, where essentially all of the proposals are hidden from view or encrypted during the bidding process and then revealed at the end of the bidding process. I love the fact that you mentioned all of these innovations like retro funding or futarchy. I guess my question there is, is there kind of one solution which fits all cases, or what are some of the pros and cons of these different systems?
I think there is no one solution fits all. I think DAOs needs to try and find exactly what is best tailored to what needs. I do believe for some specific budget allocation, for instance, snapshot vote is not needed. You have some big DAOs, like huge DAOs. When you take a DAO like Arbitrum DAO, they are not going to vote for a 5K spending. So it makes sense to give some power to a specific committee that will be able to have this power to allocate the budget. So, and for some other big spendings, you need to have a proper vote. And then you need to have a mechanism that avoid this kind of bidding, as you mentioned, with each service provider that are trying to extract as much value as possible by having their own specificities. It's also difficult to see. So by having this mechanism of commit and reveal, I think it could definitely help in this process. Things like RPGF, Futarchy can also be used. I think it's all about experimenting. There are pros and cons for each one of those methodology, in my view.
As you were speaking, it occurred to me that when we're talking about commit and reveal bidding processes, we often talk about the bids being hidden from other bidders. But I think it's also important to note that the bids themselves are actually hidden from the DAO and from the reviewers as well. And that's really important because it prevents kind of backroom deals or unfair biased sharing of information. You could imagine a situation in which I'm a DAO participant and I can see all the bids. I could actually leak the information to my favorite bidder, and they could have an unfair advantage based on the information that I share if I could see it. But if commit and reveal hides it from everyone during the bidding process, then it's not only preventing the service providers, the bidders, from misbehaving, it's also preventing the DAO from misbehaving as well.
Yeah, very good point. I think it really ties to what I mentioned at the beginning about the governance theater. We know that some service provider can be pretty close to some people involved in the DAO. There is all this crypto is a small world. So by having things that are encrypted and not being able to see the amount of the different service provider, I think as you mentioned, it helps on both fronts, for the DAO, for the service provider, and for the token holders of the DAO at the end of the day. I witnessed things, the power of commit and reveal in the DAO where I'm involved more on the personal level, Blockup DAO. It's a VC DAO, so we are voting on budget allocation. And what we saw is before using the shutter module on Snapshot, we saw a lot of people that didn't do their due diligence and they were just voting with the group, basically. And by adding this layer and this module on Snapshot, basically, we can see that the members are doing more their due diligence and they are fulfilling their role. And I think that's what should happen as well with budget allocation. Like people in the community of this DAO or people that are token holders will have to do a deeper work, basically, to more research than in the traditional way when you have a service provider just pushing as much as possible from the start.
Absolutely. Yeah, please.
So there is this common practice in our country that, for example, there is some project and there will be a couple of companies that send an offer for to do the project, kind of like if they have to build a road or something like this. Basically, the government will pick their favorites, and if there is a way to hide the offers, they won't be able to pick their favorites. Basically, the same way, but this will be. I think that this is just not something that can be used outside of the crypto world too. It's just something that can happen with public funding too, and it will help increase the transparency.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Crypto is just the beginning, but the experiments which we're doing here, we do hope they will be adopted and impactful across the world. So, Ivo, I'm glad you chimed in because I want to move the conversation over to you now. So far we have confirmed that DAO wasteful spending is a real problem. And we've explored some of the incentives or game theory at play. Let's dive into one potential solution. Maybe you could give us an introduction about StealthBid, and I think you mentioned you have a demo as well.
Yeah, I have a demo that I can present. I think if I can present the demo, I will be managed to give a good use case for the project. Give me a second. Share screen. Okay, so this is the project. This is StealthBid currently. It's a task allocation system for DAOs. This is the home screen. This is the only task that currently is available. It says the description, the creator, and the vote when the voting phase will end. And if you go inside, you can see again the details with basically the previous table, but in this project. And here people can send an offer This proposal is basically for experts in the Web3 sphere to help the DAO with optimizing the workflow, and basically the DAO is employing a new person that can help them with some knowledge and expertise. I can show you how to send an offer. So basically, you send your name, the salary. This is salary in USD, and here is the description. It says all the necessary things like the timeline, what you're offering, how you're gonna do the job, and then you can send the offer. I'm not sure if you can see my MetaMask, but I think you can't. Currently, I'm signing the transaction.
We can see it, actually. Yep.
Oh, okay. And yeah, there's this beautiful toast that says that transaction has been, the application has been submitted. And this is basically the salary that is encrypted. Kind of this $25 encrypted using Shutter. And yeah, if you go back to the proposal, you can see that there is one offer, but it doesn't say anywhere the salary for the offer, and the budget is still $0 USD. It's actually hidden. Maybe we should improve the UI to say that this is not zero. It's not a free job, but yeah, for now it's good. And when the offers are collected, the admin of the proposal can unlock them. You can do a review, and then another MetaMask option is another MetaMask tab is opened, and the admin will reveal all the budgets of the proposal of the offers. Okay, review budget started. Under the hood, we use Chainlink. Chainlink is used to reveal the budgets because yeah, as you know, crypto, the Web3 sphere can't interact with kind of systems outside of the Web3. So we're sending an API request using Chainlink in order to review all the requests, all the offers. It takes some time, like it's going to take like a minute to review all the offers. Currently, the network is congested, so it takes a little more than necessary. It's slightly faster usually, and it doesn't take 86 link usually, but yeah, I have a bad day, I guess. Okay, I think it should be good. Yeah, the UI is updated. I can set the budgets in the contract, so I can read them later on. Successfully. And if you go back to the proposal, yeah, now the budget is revealed. This is the budget of the DAO. Before that, as you remember, it used to say $0 USD, but now everyone can see that the DAO's budget is $25. And inside the offers, if we go here where we can see the offers, we can see that this submitter has sent an offer with the same budget. So this will be a good match for both the DAO and the submitter. So the DAO, the people that enter the DAO can vote on this submitter, and yeah, then they will. He can do the job. He will accept the job and basically do his job. And I think that's the whole process. Yeah, I think that's the whole process.
Very cool. And let's see, as I mentioned before, you built this in a weekend at EthSofia, and you mentioned a little bit of background, about government procurement processes in Bulgaria. But how did you come up with the idea of StealthBid, and why did you decide to work on this problem in particular?
So when we went to the hackathon, we didn't have a single idea what we're going to do. And then we met you, and we really enjoyed the idea behind Shutter. And we just wanted to do something with it. It also resonated because I had a personal project that I wanted to work. I saw that I could use Shutter, so it was a good way to gain some expertise before I can do my personal project that I'm really passionate about. So this is how it started. We saw that this could be used for employee and employers, but we wanted to make it like Web3. The original idea was an employer is going to say, "Hey, we need a developer with this much that can work with this much money." But then we wanted to make it Web3, so we decided to do with the DAO, and yeah, I think this was the whole idea, and we really enjoyed working with Shutter. It was like actually really good. When we were working on the project, we didn't have a single problem with it. We had different problems, but I don't want to speak about it because yeah, it's just Web3 stuff.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed building on Shutter. I think most of the credit is due to you and your hackathon teammate who actually built this in a very short period of time. But that's a good transition into our next topic. And so I'd like to ask Louis to tell us a little bit about Nano Shutter. As you mentioned, Nano Shutter is something that was built specifically to help hackathon teams build these prototypes very rapidly.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe let me start with you talked a little bit about Genesis already, but let me start from my perspective. So we built Shutter originally with the whole intention to make it as generalizable and as sort of platform-esque as possible, so that awesome apps can be built on top. But in the meantime, we figured out, well, we have to build some of these use cases ourselves to prove out that it that it makes sense and that it can work. So we deviated a little bit away from this original kind of generalization vision, and we built the snapshot shielded voting, and we built the encrypted mempool for Gnosis chain. But we're now sort of making this push again back to having it more generalized and having and making it very easy to build on top. And in part of this push, or kind of like a sneak peek and a first stage of this push, is Nano Shutter, which is, as you already said, is essentially a simplified version of Shutter, designed to be as easy as possible for developers to build on top. It is essentially just four API endpoints. Number one is a time-based encryption, so you can encrypt.
Is Louis having connection trouble, or is it just me?
Oh, sorry.
It looks like he's back. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I'm not allowed to switch out of the app. Sorry. But yeah, we have sort of two different. So then let me start again. We have two different encryption API routes essentially. One is to encrypt with a specific. Sorry, I hit the music in the background. Can someone mute? Thank you. Yeah. The one is we encrypt for a specific Unix timestamp in the future, and then it's encrypt endpoint and the decrypt endpoint. And then the other one is we can encrypt for a specific user-defined epoch ID. So the user can choose any epoch ID. And then again, we have the encrypt endpoint and the decrypt endpoint. So it's just for API endpoints having two different kind of routes or two different modes of for how you want to encrypt and decrypt. Yeah, and that's what makes it so simple to build on top. Yeah, disclaimer or sort of caveat: it is not it's not decentralized, right? It's sort of the opposite. It's really centralized, and it is in general not audited and not really safe for any production use. But the DevX that we can display here, we're hoping to have the same DevX very soon for the real Shutter as well. So any projects building on top of Shutter, they can get started using Nano Shutter, and as they develop their app and as they iterate on their app, they can then later switch on to the real Shutter, and we hope to make this transition as easy as possible. So that they can focus fully on their application and the user experience. Yeah, and just as some examples of the things we have built ourselves very easily and very quickly, just in a couple of hours essentially, is one is a rock paper scissors game using Nano Shutter, so you can encrypt your moves, and you assure that there's information symmetry and that the game actually works. If you don't have information symmetry in rock paper scissors, it's a fundamentally broken game. That's something, yeah, that was very easy to build. And a little sneak peek on something else that we are conceptualizing right now, and that was also very easy to build a small POC for, is an idea from one of Shutter DAO 0x36's DAO members. And his idea is around an OTC crypto or any other OTC swap or trade also has a negotiation phase, right? Very similar to StealthBid or to this DAO bidding process. These OTC processes also have a negotiation haggling phase before, right? And again, it can also be beneficial to collect the bids in blind essentially, and to reveal them afterwards. Yeah, and that's something that a DAO member actually kind of coincidentally came up with this idea, and because they're an investor and they're familiar with this landscape, so they were interested in building this. And again, sort of the initial POC we could build within like just a couple of hours, and then iterating from there to hopefully turn it into real. And oftentimes you don't need the full app, right? Just to validate the idea and to shop it around and go to potential stakeholders or customers. You don't have to actually build the full system out yet. So that's what we can do now with these use cases. Shop around and ask if there would be demand for this. Yeah. So very excited about StealthBid, very excited about other people building on top. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think, you've already heard from a few people here on the call today that these commit and reveal schemes have many different applications in many different use cases. And I would love to dive into all of those. Ivo mentioned he has a passion project, which, is built on commit and reveal schemes. I have one as well, which I'm hoping to share with the community in the coming weeks, but I don't want to get sidetracked, right? So let's go full circle back to you, Alex. Now that you've seen StealthBid, you've seen this demo, which was prototyped in just a couple of days. Is this something, based on your experience with DAOs, do you think it would be useful? Is it something which maybe with a little bit of refinement, DAOs would be interested in using.
Yeah, thank you for the demo. I think it's really interesting as it is adding this value of having the amount hidden. And I like the example taken here because it was about like the salary for a dev. I think in this industry, in crypto industry, there is a kind of a bias toward US salary and US rates. And I think that's also one of the beauty of the ecosystem is the fact that it's permissionless. It's like an anon that is anywhere in the world. If he's pretty good and is doing a very good job, and you have on-chain proof of this, doesn't need to reveal his own identity. And by doing this, you can be pretty competitive in terms of rates for dev or for plenty of things. So I think using such system for DAOs could be a good way to avoid to overpay sometimes. Definitely what we are doing in Web3 is pretty highly technical, but I do think in a permissionless environment, you have some people that are that could be pretty competitive, and it is also tremendous opportunity for them. So I think it's a really a tool that allows a win-win deal. It's a win deal. It's definitely a win deal for a DAO that is going to get more value for its bucks, and it's definitely also a win for the service provider and all the individuals that want to contribute actively from the DAO, wherever they are, they could be pretty competitive. So I think it's definitely a huge value of having this commit and reveal scheme.
So I'm going to double down and I'm going to make the question even harder. It's easy to say, hey, that's a cool feature. That's a cool service. But I think the $64,000 or maybe $1 million question is, would DAOs be willing to pay for this? And, given the fact that it's kind of a governance tool, and many governance tools are offered in the Web3 space free of charge, not only is it something would it be something that DAOs would be willing to pay for? And if so, how should we think about calculating the value? Should it be a set fee per month? Should it be a percentage of the value negotiated? What might be some attractive options for DAOs? I told you it was a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question, definitely. I think it's a tough question, especially because each DAOs have their own specificities, and when they are doing requests for proposal, they are also really on a specific spectrum. So it's always difficult to quantify like the saving. You would like to have another alternative world where the DAO didn't use this basically solution and see how much they paid. But yeah, one way, in my view, where this can be think of in terms of monetizing is definitely to have to offer this as a free option to start, and then to see if the DAO is gaining a lot of value. I think they will be ready to pay for these services, and it will create a precedent, and other DAOs will see that, oh, these guys are having this procurement governance tool that is very convenient, and it allows them to have good value at quite a low cost. So basically, they will compete. So yeah, I think that's my view about the road to a monetization or business model for such tools. But yeah, there might be different approach, definitely. But yeah, that's my idea.
Awesome. We have just about 5 or maybe 10 minutes left. If we could take questions from any of the listeners, that would be wonderful. So if you have a burning question for any of our speakers, please post it in the thread, and we will read it out for everyone to answer. I guess we have a couple of questions. We'll dive into those. The first one is a question for Alex. Are there types of DAOs, for example, DeFi DAOs or pure governance DAOs, which are more vulnerable to wasteful spending?
So I would say like all the DAOs in a sense we can find wasteful spending in all the DAOs. If I would have to select one specific type of DAOs where basically this might happen more than the other ones and they are more vulnerable, it's the ones that are less decentralized. So you have when you have young DAOs that are at the very beginning of their decentralization journey, you have few players that have a lot of power, and sometimes there could have some friends that are service provider, and those service provider can be paid very big amounts for the value they bring. When you have DAO that are more mature in terms of decentralization, you can have some system procurement system, some committees, some check and balances that could avoid this. Yeah, side point, that's something that at Kleros, because we are a subjective oracle, we can help to bring these check and balances to DAOs. I think they are really important for decentralization. So yeah, that would be my answer. Really, when you have very centralized DAO, you can see a very, very a lot of wasteful spending sometimes. Yes.
Awesome. The next question, I think Ivo is probably the best person to answer it. The commenter says, it looks like there is no budget limit included in the proposal. If the budget is included in the proposal, so members can vote to approve it, it seems like the actors will know how much the DAO is willing to pay. So I guess, Ivo, is in your demo, the budget limit was hidden from the bidders. Is it possible to provide that up front? And what are some of the pros and cons there?
I guess the budget is hidden, but if there's someone, he can wait. Give me a second. Yeah, so the budget is hidden, but as you know, most DAOs are public, so they can see the budget. This can be prevented basically by hiding the DAO's information, like names or something that can expose their identity. So even if DAO's budget is public, we can still, like, it's private in the DApp, but in the decentralized application. But if it's hidden, if it's hidden on the if it's public on the DApp, it will be a problem. But we can hide the identity of the DApp too. I'm not sure if I answered it, but yeah, I hope I did.
No, I think that's great. We will take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. If you have them, drop them in the chat right now. And while we're waiting for those, we have a comment, and it says, it looks like this is Upwork for Web3. And actually, go ahead.
So this was the original idea, but then we wanted to make it like for DAOs, because so yeah, like I said, this was the original idea. It was like Upwork for Web3, and then we decided to transition it a bit because Web3 is different than the classical Web2 system. And yeah, you're kind of right.
Wonderful. It looks like we don't have any more questions. So we'll wrap up here. Thank you so much to all of our speakers for an amazing and engaging conversation. Thank you to our more than 100 listeners who have joined us live today. Of course, if you know anyone who missed the live recording, you can still share the link and they can watch it whenever is best for them. And if you were inspired by today's conversation, hop over to shutter.network for more information about Shutter. And if you would like to get in touch with Ivo in particular about StealthBid, I think he's going to drop his Twitter profile in the chat box, and feel free to DM him to get in touch directly. I would love for DAO members or active core contributors to reach out, get in touch with him, ask for a one-on-one demo, provide feedback, and specifically say what features or requirements they would have in order to start using it for their DAOs. And then also, mention how much you think your DAO would be willing to pay for this service, because it's definitely adding value. And if we can, or not we, but if StealthBid can make a sustainable business model out of it, that would be absolutely tremendous. Cool. There's the Twitter handle there. And then I would say last but not least, as we mentioned earlier, there are so many applications and use cases where Shutter commit and reveal style encryption can be used. Some of them which were mentioned on the call today were salary negotiations, OTC sales, and there are literally dozens more which I could mention, but I'm not going to. If you have an idea and you would like to build on Shutter, check out our recent blog post about Nano Shutter. It's a simple way for you to go from zero to prototype in about 48 hours. And we would love to see what you build, and we would be very happy to help you build it and to scale it as well. So thank you once again, everyone. It's been awesome. Looking forward to our next conversation soon.